Welcome to Mixing It, and we're delighted to have on tonight's show, sitting in for the whole show, Björk, who's going to be talking about her music and talking about some of the CDs she's brought in. Thanks very much for coming in, Björk.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Before we play some of the CDs, a very interesting stack of CDs you brought in, we thought we'd play a track from your latest album, Vespertine, and we've selected, or I think you've selected, Harm of Will. What is it about this track that makes it a particular favourite?
I guess it caught the mood I was after really well. It was a challenge for me. I wanted to go really lyrical, so it wasn't beat orientated, and it was like free time, and it was sort of poetry based opposed to verse, chorus, verse, chorus.
There's a very nice effect. It sounds like you've cut up your own breath. It sounds like you've sampled your own breathing and cut it up. Is that right?
Yeah, I took the vocal, and I had just gotten into my laptop at the time and just learned the features you learn first when you're really, really stupid, and was basically cut and edit and cut and paste.
Well, let's
so
hear
I just
it.
went for it.
If there is a troubadour washing, it is he. If there is a man about town, it is he. There is one to be sought. Is he? If there are 9 sheep, they are bought for me. This way is as is she, and he placed her unclothed, long, long, a long length, a time. And if he has chosen the point, while she is under him, then leave her coyly placed, crouched, sucking him for his eye, with her on me, in the ultimately the careless way. I leave her without pith or feel, and leave her be, leave it be, for he controls what's there
was Harm of Will by Björk, our special guest tonight, and that's from her most recent album, Vespertine. Björk, something I love about this album are the very lush orchestrations which you did with Vince Mendoza. How do you actually work together to come up with an orchestration like that?
Well, with this particular song, I had like a synth sound, which is like a tremolo, just like a really naff kind of. And I would play in on synthesizer the whole arrangement, which is sort of pretty identical what it is on the album. And then he would get it, and he would have to just by ear. Well, we would also print out actually for him, to be fair.
Because he's based in America, isn't he?
Yeah, print out for him what just the synth, like the computer printout of what I had just played, and then he would orchestrate it for like a 50-piece orchestra.
And when was the first time you would hear this orchestration?
That was, yeah, you know, right? Like we would prepare all the songs for like 2 years, and then you get like an orchestra together, and it's really expensive, and then you hear all those kind of crap synthy stuff you've been doing with naff synth sounds, like string sounds. You hear them in like the space of 2 days, like song after song after song after song, and you just like lump in the throat the whole time, and it's very, very rewarding.
So you were pleased with the way it turned out?
Very pleased. I mean, there were other songs where he would also bring notes, like write. It wouldn't only be orchestration. He would also arrange. That particular song I probably arranged and he orchestrated. So I was very, very pleased. He's, out of the ones I worked with so far, he's very, very good with like all the different colors you can get out of an orchestra. And I really needed for this album, I wanted like a very see-through textural string sound, opposed to like a loud melodic one. So it had to be someone who knew about like the 50 different kind of layer things you can do with a string orchestra. And again, I wanted this album string-wise not to be everything played on 10 and like over romantic, but everything played on like 2 and 3 and sort of, and that is a lot harder to orchestrate. You really need someone who really knows what he's doing.
And it was important also that you kept the beats well in the background, obviously, for that kind of sound that you were going for.
Yeah, like this song, for example, is not sequenced at all. It's completely free time. There were other songs where we played to a click track. But yeah, like I said before, I really wanted to be lyrical.
Now, talking of great orchestration, the next track that we're going to play is something
The first one you've brought in.
Yeah, it's by John Tavener. Tell us about this piece of music.
Yeah, I guess this is the piece I heard first when I fell in love with John Tavener. I'd sort of known a little bit about him, not that much, to be honest. And then I heard this, and I actually heard it a couple of years before I did Vespertine. And it was just so exotic, and kind of when you take that sort of very clean classical world and go really, really decadent and exotic and definitely lyrical. But it's gorgeous, yeah.
That was To a Child Dancing in the Wind, composed by John Tavener and sung by Patricia Rosario, the first of an interesting selection of CDs that our guest for tonight, Björk, has brought in. And apparently, Björk, you were saying that John Tavener has actually written a piece for you, and you've collaborated with him.
Yeah, I almost blush. Yeah, I think it might have been Brodsky's idea or something, Brodsky Quartet, which I was working with a lot, and I was telling them how much I liked actually this piece. And they said, oh, why don't we just ask him? And I'm like, you know, you don't just do that, you know. And so we recorded it, and it's not out yet, but it's based on, it's Prayer of the Heart. He based it on a monk he saw in India that had been meditating for so long that he was in a state that his body was dead. And I think they were going to bury him or something. But then they figured out that he was just in such a euphoric state that his body didn't matter anymore. And he based the piece on that. So it's very, very pure.
And did you just sang it, or did you contribute more than that?
I just sang it. But it was incredible for me, something I've never experienced before, that someone who's obviously like a good composer, like would check out my range, my vocal range. And
So he'd listen to your records?
Yeah. And he had to work out, I felt like a gun in somebody's hand. Like he'd work out my range, what I could do, and then just threw the song through me. And you just like a tool.
And was it what you expected?
Yeah, I guess it was already like 50 times more than I ever had dreamed of. So the whole thing was quite magical. We would spend some time together and have some dinners, and he's really into some pretty full-on debates about, you know, the small things in life, like death and religion and love.
Yes, he likes controversy and mysticism in sort of equal portions, doesn't he? Well, sadly, we don't have a recording of that, but we do have a recording from what I think is an absolutely fantastic album, Homogenic. The album, we're actually going backwards in time through the albums you've released. And from this album, Björk, you've chosen a track which I'm very fond of called Unravel. What is it about the song that you like so much?
I think it's very complete. I guess you aim for, when you're in my job, is the lyric and the music and the mood. Everything is working as one. And I think with this song, we managed to do that pretty well. Sometimes it's separated, you know. I think I'm probably most happy how the words and the song go together.
Is it a very personal song?
Yes or no? Not more than the other ones. I think I've tried to do on personal music, but I'm rubbish at it.
was Unravel. Björk singing, obviously, from the album Homogenic. A lovely track that, aside from the lyrics, which I think express a simple, loving sentiment very well. It's interesting the way you've sort of used your voice almost like a set of bells in that. Was that a conscious thing? You've got the various cadences all rolling off each other.
I guess it was not conscious. But I guess something I discovered with the album after Vespertine was maybe I started there somewhere to do backing vocals that sort of stand for my conscience. And then you sort of have Pinocchio and Jeremy Cricket sort of having a debate and do it, no, don't do it, do it, don't do it. And I'm probably being analytical about myself now, which is a bit of a dangerous pit.
Well, that's what you're here to be.
But I think maybe that's sort of why it's sort of like the bell thing. It's sort of, it overlaps, you know?
And Homogenic, this was the album where I first came across you working with Mark Bell, because the beats are really sort of quite hard and industrial on this album, aren't they?
Yeah, I wanted to do distorted beats that sounded like volcanoes, because this was going to be my Icelandic album, you know, if there ever was one, and with Icelandic string octet and volcanic beats. And I'd actually done the beats to songs like Bachelorette and Yoga in 5 years before Mark Bell joined in. But I guess like with Mark Bell, like with most people I work with, it was a long, like I met him first in 90, we kept in touch.
Had you heard his LFO records?
Yeah, I loved it and thought it was the best thing ever. And then he would do remixes for me. We would talk about, like have sort of nerd talks on the phone about things. And then 96, like 6 years later, I asked if he would come and contribute to Homogenic in Spain. And he said, yeah, I'll come over for 2 weeks. And he stayed for 6 months. So, and then we ended up completing almost everything for each other for 4 years. So usually with most people I work with, it's a long... I know them pretty well when I work with them.
And talking of hard beats, the next piece
Yes.
you brought in is a good example.
Natural segue from John Taverner.
Public Enemy.
Yeah.
Tell us why you like Rebel Without a Pause.
Yeah, I just think it's one of the masterpieces of last century. I think it's as sonically abstract as some of what Miles Davis has been credited for, and it's, I guess most people notice the sort of black politics and the words about Public Enemy, but I think musically they're just like completely brave and courageous, and I'm still have had problems with finding a rap record that tops this one, you know. I think it's the best.
Terminator X. Terminator X. Terminated.
Yo, Chuck, you're getting them nervous. They can't handle this. They're gonna break down.
From a rebel, it's final. A black final soul. Rock and roll coming like a rhino. Tables turn, suckers burn to learn. They can't disable the power of my label. Def Jam tells you who I am. The enemy's public. They really give a damn. Strong Island, where I got a wildin'. That's the reason they're claiming that I'm violent. Never silent, no dope, getting dumb, nope. Claiming where we get our rhythm from. Number one, we hit you and we give you some. No gun, it's still never on the run. You wanna be an S1 gripper till you win, and then you come again. You know what time it is. Impeach the president, pulling out my ray gun. Zap the next one, I could be your shogun.
Suckers,
Don't last a minute, soft and smooth, I ain't with it.
hardcore.
Raw bone like a razor, I'm like a laser, I just won't phase ya. Old enough to raise ya, so this will phase ya. Get it right, boy, maybe I will praise ya. Playing the role I got soul to. Voice my opinion with volume.
Smooth.
Not what I am.
Rock.
Cause I'm a man, no matter what the name. We're all the same, pieces in one big chess game.
Yeah.
The voice of power is in a house. Go take a shower, boy. P.E. a crew, not singular. We wear black wranglers, we're rap stranglers. You can't angle us. I know you're listening. I caught you pissing in your pants. You're scared of dissing us. The crowd is missing us. We're on a mission, y'all.
Yo, Chuck, more time.
Bring that beat back,
Bring
man.
that beat back. Bring the beat back.
Y'all want to hear that beat, right? Bring that beat back.
Bring that
1,
shit back.
2, 3, 4, hit it.
This shit ain't over. Come on, y'all. Let's get busy. Come on. Say yeah. Say hell yeah. Come on, y'all. Come on. Let's rock the house. Somebody. Everybody. Everybody scream.
Public Enemy, Rebel Without a Pause, chosen by our guest tonight, Björk. So, Björk, I mean, in your own music, would you listen to something like that Public Enemy track, and try and capture something of that and do it in your own music? Or do you just appreciate it from afar?
Yeah, I think Public Enemy I definitely just appreciate from afar. They just got like their story, their roots. It's like you can't even go there, you know.
Now that you're based in New York, or you've been living in New York, do you find yourself much more interested in rap, which is obviously a major musical force there?
I guess not. Maybe I would have if I would have moved there 10 years ago or something. Yeah, it's a good question. I think the influence of New York on me hasn't really yet kicked in, and I don't know really what it will be yet, you know. It's easy for me to talk about maybe the London experience because I can see it from afar now, you know, that it was definitely a handshake to London, especially London's beat makers, for sure.
So do you see a change of direction in your music coming then?
Yeah, very much so. But it's hard for me to say how much it has to do with New York. Maybe in another 10 years, maybe you'll have me for another visit.
Of course, you're already collaborating with a great New York musician, Zena Parkins. How did you meet her and hook up with her?
Yeah, I was actually, had tried several harpists before, and I'd written most of the harp arrangements and was looking for one that was not only like impeccable harp player, but also had her own character and would contribute more, improvise if you want. And my friend recommended her to me, and she's like the best, you know.
Well, she puts her harps through loads of electronic processes, and often it doesn't sound like a harp at all, does it?
Yeah, she's been called the Jimi Hendrix of harp, and it's a title she rightfully has to serve.
Did she play on Selma songs, or did you meet her after that?
I met her after.
Because Selma Songs is, for those unfamiliar with it, is the music from your famous and acclaimed motion picture Dancer in the Dark. Björk, did you write these songs specifically for the film, or were they pieces of music that you already had up and running that you adapted for the film?
I think they were written specifically for the film. I've seen it all. Was written after the same evening after reading the script for the first time. So I tried to be really sincere. I guess I've listened to too many soundtracks, especially recent soundtrack albums where the music does seem to have nothing to do with the film whatsoever. So I had always said no to all offers about doing film music and promised that if I'd ever do one, it would be as intimate and seamless connection with sound and music. No, sorry, picture and music as possible, that it would all come from the same root. So I really made a big effort to be honest in that.
It is a remarkable album, I think. It's probably your most eclectic in terms of the wild variance in styles. And the track you've chosen is Scatterheart. What was it about this one that particularly stood out for you?
I think maybe this is a track where it came later in the project, and it was a point of view from a mother who's dead and is singing as a ghost back to her 14-year-old son, and what advice, if you would die, and what would you say to your child? So that's sort of the point of view of the song, and I like that very much. There were two different lyrics to this song. One that was on the film that was written by Lars von Trier and Sjón, but the one on the soundtrack is written by me. I think also from another point of view, this is probably a song where me and Mark Bell have been collaborating for about 3 years at that point, and it's probably the song I'm proudest of that's completely seamless, his beats and my musical ideas, and where it's one of the best handshakes we made.
And is there some music box in there as well?
Yeah, this was when I was starting to get excited about music boxes, where actually it would be Celesta playing. and it would be chopped up to pieces in like Pro Tools. And then that's what triggered off my interest in actually making my own music boxes, which was done for Vespertine.
Black night is falling, the sun is gone to bed, the innocent are dreaming as you should sleepyhead, sleepyhead, sleepyhead. All the love I send into you, comfort and protection. I'll watch over you, but don't ask me what's gonna happen next. I know the future. I'd love to lead you away, just to make it
Scatterheart, sung by tonight's guest Björk, and that's from the album Selma Songs. Björk, I wanted to ask you something about your singing style, because I know you're very interested in contemporary classical music, and you've often mentioned Stockhausen and Messiaen and people like that. Is your singing style influenced by singers like Kathy Barberi and contemporary classical performers?
I think if it is, it's probably not conscious. I think I managed to separate pretty well that my sort of more academic or more clever side goes more into arrangements, or when I'm in the studio kind of editing and chopping up stuff. But my voice, I've always tried to not think about it, and that it's sort of nature, or that it stands for like the things in me that I don't understand. And like most of my records, it's my vocal, that's how I write my songs. So I just go for a walk in nature for a while, and then just out come a song that I don't understand. And I'll sing it in like one take and not really analyze it. And then afterwards, I can spend 5 billion hours on the arrangement, and that's where maybe I'm being more clever or technical or professional, if you want.
When I hear your voice, I always think of a flute, which I know was the first instrument that you played, I think. And the way that you use your vocal cords and some of the textures you get remind me a lot of the sort of sounds that one hears from a flautist. But I presume from what you said, that's unconscious.
Yeah, well, I've never. That sounds excellent. I probably true, because I played the flute for a few years, and I probably learned my breathing techniques from that. That's probably how I breathe.
But also,
sure.
When you sing, you're not afraid to use breath as an actual sound. That's something that maybe you got from playing the flute.
Yeah, it could be. I really like breathing. Yeah, like you noticed before, I exaggerate the breath.
You have actually interpreted various classical pieces. I know you did a performance of Pierre Linaire by Schoenberg, didn't you, which is famous for having sort of speech vocals. Why did you sing that particular piece?
Well, I probably would never have thought of it. This director called Kent Nagano contacted me and suggested this. And I thought first it was nuts. And then I tried it, and I realized that he was right, This must be one of the most gorgeous poetry written. It was very enjoyable.
Has it come out on record?
No, I keep running out of time, and I guess my priority has always been my own music. I need to write better songs.
Well, let's talk about the next piece that you've brought in,
Yeah, this is
which
a
is
complete
something
new
that
one on
neither of
us.
us have heard of before. It's by someone called Chris Watson. Tell us about this CD.
Yeah, I guess it was a CD that I and a lot of my mates fell for. It came out like 2 or 3 years ago or something. And it was this man who was obsessed with microphones. And it's an album of 20 or 30 songs, or not songs, recordings, that he's done on 20 or 30 different microphones. And it's basically him recording animals, mostly animals in the fields and or where they live. I think what was most interesting about him at that point was that most wildlife recordings you hear, like David Attenborough shows, or the microphone is usually quite far away, and it's sort of panoramic.
A flattering sound.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're trying to make it panoramic, romantic nature experience. Whereas this guy went, if he could, he would put the microphone actually inside. So it's sort of a micro approach, which is maybe something I was very obsessed with before I did Vespertine, that instead of, when I did Homogenic, it was about putting 59 amplifiers and everything was exaggerated, like the emotion was exaggerated, the beats were distorted, everything was like on 11. And then on Vespertine, it was sort of about everything being on minus 11 and taking a sound like a pencil hitting a microphone like this and going inside it with a zoom lens and make it like, it's very much about like a picture of, say, a small piece of your skin kind of made very, very big. So it's sort of about micro, to cut a long story short. But
And you've chosen something called Capercailles. Why do you like that one?
What's he getting inside here?
It's I think it's actually in Scotland. I mean, there's some really exotic things there where you put the microphone inside a zebra carcass that's eaten by lions. But this one is actually Scotland. And I think I like the rhythmic element of the sound from this.
Well, that was Capercailles, recorded, I noticed, in a Caledonian pine forest in Speyside, Scotland in April 1997. That was Chris Watson playing with microphones, another selection by tonight's guest, Björk. And we were all enjoying the way that track seemed to imitate the sound of small tom-toms. It did actually sound like a mad drum break. Now, moving back in time as we have been through your own recorded output, Björk, we've now arrived at your second album, very fine album indeed, Post. And you've chosen a track which does not often get talked about much, Cover Me. What is it about this song that you particularly like?
Yeah, I guess this, to be on the show is luxury for me, so I can, it's not about the singles. I'm quite fond of this song. It was, I wrote it on a harpsichord and then got Guy Sigsworth to play it because I can't play and sing at the same time. And the dulcimer player, which is a gorgeous instrument. And then afterwards I added with Marcus Drafts some electronic noises on it.
Are you always in search of unusual instruments? It does sound like from album to album you're sort of going out to find the most unusual instruments you can, something that excites you.
Yeah, for sure. But it is quite funny. You think you're being the bravest and the most adventurous, and then you always end up with similar kind of noises, which is, it's like you going to the flea market and buying like a far-out garment, and you come back with the same red coat that you wore when you were 5. So it's interesting. It's definitely a turn-on for me, like the hunter element of it.
But presumably with this album, Post, after the enormous success of your first album, you were allowed a much greater degree of freedom, presumably artistically, than you would have had before. You had more time, more money to make exactly the record you wanted, presumably.
Yeah, for sure. Also in the sort of spoiled, rotten position that I could almost ask anybody to work with me and they would say yes, which is a very privileged position.
Did you feel a lot of pressure, commercial or otherwise, to follow up the success of Debut with this album?
I guess I always have had in my head or heart what my music sounds like, and I still feel like I'm not there. So when I did Debut, it was a confused, because I felt it was just a rehearsal. And of course I was like flabbergasted how many people liked it. It was a big surprise, But I was definitely heading somewhere, and it was a relief for me to do Homogenic, which for me I think it's about 4 or 5 times better album than Debut is.
And how about Post? Where do you put Post between Debut and Homogenic?
I think it was a necessary. I knew with Debut and Post, that's why I titled them Debut and Post. It's sort of before and after the girl goes to the city thing. You get the rural girl and you put her in an urban environment and she goes haywire on Piccadilly Circus with all the lights and meets a lot of exciting people and communicates like with 5,000 people a day. And it's almost like going to school or something after you've been isolated for a very long time. So I guess Debut was the first half of it and Post the second half where I was braver, I think, on Post and more... I think Debut was a very shy album, which is not necessarily bad, but it was definitely very shy. And Post, I'm braver, and more going further in the duets. I would call it sort of a duet album.
All right, let's hear something from Post, and this is Cover Me.
While I crawl into the unknown, cover me. I'm going hunting for mystery. Cover I'm going to prove the impossible exists. This is really dangerous. Cover me. But where's all the effort? Cover me. I'm going to prove the impossible really exists.
Cover Me track from Björk's second album, Post. And another selection from your own CD collection coming up, Björk. You've chosen a track from a Nico album, which I'm not very familiar with, called Desert Songs. Is Nico a big vocal influence on you, or a person who you've learned a lot from musically?
Yeah, I was trying to pick at least one vocalist. It's tough for me, probably because I don't listen to any vocal stuff.
Why not?
It could be because just sort of a form of protection or something, because you soak up so quickly, like little noises. Especially me. I mean, you can hear it in my accent, who I spoke to last week, you know.
So you're worried you'd pick up other people's vocal mannerisms without even noticing?
I think so. I mean, I didn't. That's a theory I brought like a year ago, but I think there's a reason for it why I don't. And I've got a feeling maybe guitarists don't listen to a lot of guitarists and so on. But I guess probably what I really liked about Nico, I used to listen to her quite a lot as a teenager, especially this album, was that it's quite rootsy. And it's sort of about her dealing with her roots, and she's German. So it's sort of a European thing going on. So it's not like a lot of people's roots in pop music are like blues or sort of black American thing. And I just couldn't relate to that at all. And everything that was European was like really boring and not really exciting, like roots, except the Bulgarian singers or something, you know, that everybody likes. I didn't really pick up anything from her because I've got very different roots than her, for sure, Icelandic roots. But I did adore her confidence in just being German, even though she was pretty, you know,
and there's a very strange
cool and
quality.
fashionable.
There's a very strange quality to the sound of her voice as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I really adore it. And she's an excellent harmonium player, too.
And this is a track called My Only Child.
Yeah.
My only child, be not so blind. See what you hold. There are no words, no ears, no eyes to show them what you know. Their hands are old, their faces cold, their bodies close to freezing, their feelings find. The morning smile, too small to fill their ways with breathing, the evening tall. My only child, remember well the words that you are told.
Nico singing My Only Child, that's from her album Desert Songs. She wasn't playing harmonium on it, but doing lots of vocals. The next piece of yours, Björk, that we're going to play is Anchor Song from your album debut, but we're going to play the...
particular favourite of ours because
Yeah.
we included a remix of it on a compilation that we put out under the Mixing It banner about, 7 or 8 years ago.
And I think it has the World Saxophone Quartet on it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did you work with them?
Yeah, I wrote the song on a holiday. I went on my own in Iceland where I had a bicycle. And I had a map of Iceland's little wooden churches. Some of the farmers in Iceland built those little churches. And I would bike between them and play a game to myself. It took like 4 hours to bike between them, that I would have to write a melody on my bike before I hit it. And then I would ask them if I could use their harmonium. And then I would write on the harmonium for like half an hour and record it. on
What,
a
they all had a
dictaphone.
harmonium?
Yeah, like some really pretty fucked up harmoniums. And then I would aim for the next church, and there'd be another 4 hours of bicycling, and I had to write a melody, so I had a 4 hour deadline. So I wrote that song like that. So it's sort of very basic chords on harmonium. And then I thought they were just perhaps a little bit too naive. So I was listening quite a lot to the World Saxophone Quartet at the time. So I sent it to Oliver Lake and asked if he would take those chords and arrange them, which he did.
And were you pleased with what he did?
Yeah, I was completely over the moon. I felt like a proper musician. So.
Because this track's quite interesting. It's the only one on the album debut which you actually produced yourself. It was all your own work, because the rest of the album, clearly, you collaborated very closely with Nellie Hooper. Did you feel then this was the beginning of a new chapter in your sort of career as a musician?
I guess so. We did 2 tracks last on this album. We did Aeroplane. And I remember Nellie really wanted to sequence the beat and do some, like a house beat to it. And that's where I put my foot down and said, no way. And so the girl was getting a little bit independent, perhaps. That was like the only sort of, I remember, thing that we disagreed on, because the whole collaboration was very magical and very loving. And this was the one I wouldn't let him sequence a beat to it. And then after that, I did Anchor Song. Yeah.
Oh, we love it. Anyway, this is the Black Dog remix.
Yeah.
I live by the ocean, and during the night I dive into it, drop my anchor. This is my home.
That was Anchor Song by Björk from her first album debut.
And that was the Black Dog remix.
Yeah, the whole thing about remixes is very interesting, because you seem to commission an awful lot of remixes. Why?
I guess there's several reasons. One of the reasons is that the few people I have actually collaborated with musically, you know, when, like for real, like Mark Bell or Nellie Hooper, these kind of people that you know for years and you become the other half of them, and it's like very intimate. I really, really adore working like that, and it's like a full-on relationship, you know, musical relationship. But then I also like, just for music's sake, to put a song in the post and someone maybe that you've only met a couple of times. And it's not about you being a personality or anything. It just, your music just becomes material, like sugar and flour on the table. And just as a purist, I like the two extreme opposites of that. Of either you're full-on musical relationship or just like you don't even know them. And you just open up the bag and see what's there. And you can do whatever you want with it. So it's a very liberating collaboration. I was trying to explain the idea of remixes to my friend the other day who is a sculpturist. And he just couldn't believe it. Obviously, most people know about like the house mix of whomever. But if it's done more like from a creative point of view, he was like, what do you mean? I would like do a sculpture and then I would just put the ingredients of what went into that piece and send it in the post to another sculpture, and he could do whatever he wants, but it would still of the name.
But it is, funnily enough, it is quite a sculptural concept,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, you give somebody a lump of sound and they sculpt it into another lump of sound. I'm
But I mean-
surprised the sculptor wouldn't have been more receptive to it in a way.
But like
Yeah,
that,
it's incredible, right? That it's like everybody know that's what it's about, and it's acknowledged. It's incredible. I think we're living in special times, you know.
Now, the next track you've chosen from your CD collection, Björk, is actually by a chap who did a remix on your latest single, I understand. Who is he?
He's called Olivier Alari, and this is a CD I listened a lot to the summer of 2000. I was living in a tent on a roof in Manhattan. And,
As you do.
As you do. And I had a ghetto blaster with batteries, and this CD would kind of go through the fabric walls of the tent and put me to sleep in the evenings.
and what do you particularly like about the track that you've chosen?
It's just euphoric. I guess it was an emotion I was particularly interested in at the time, especially in an environment like brutal urban meatpacking district Manhattan, where there's not an angel in sight and a lot of dead pigs and transvestites, and you can still kind of listen to the most euphoric music in the universe, and you just create like a little bubble. I was very obsessed with that at the time, and I think that's one of the reasons why I fell for this CD.
Well, that was Ensemble with Sketch Proposals number 5, that Ensemble being a group led by Olivier Alari, who has, uncoincidentally, remixed the B-side, is it, of your latest single, Björk?
Yeah, I thought Cocoon would be a song that really suited him, and asked him if he could do that track, and he said, "Oh, that sounds great. How about if I do Sun in My Mouth?"
Why did he particularly want to do Sun in My Mouth?
I could see it after, I think it's excellent when people, quite a lot when I ask remixers to, I ask them if they could just pick a track, because it means they will find a track where they can be themselves at their best, that's most room for them, I think on the other tracks, maybe not on the track that you just heard, there's sort of a slight jazz chord structures going on there. He's quite musical, whatever that means. But Sun in My Mouth is probably the track that has that sort of chords. It's sort of sevenths and, that sort
So
of...
it has a bit of a jazzy vibe to it.
Well, not exactly. Like definitely it doesn't have a but
Yeah.
but it's sort of just the chord structure as such. And I think he really... That's my theory anyway. I'd like to ask him myself, but I think that's why he related it to it. And also, it does have that same euphoric feeling that I was talking about before.
Björk, how do you feel generally about singles? I mean, your work seems to me to be such, not seamless exactly, but it's a body of work. Each of the album has a distinct personality, a distinct style. What's it like to sort of chop out a bit and put it out as a single?
I guess I could answer this question several ways. I guess one of them would be that when I left Iceland when I was 27, I'd been hanging out with passionate music people who were so anti-commercial that if there's records sold more than 3 copies, they've betrayed, their soul. And so I was kind of brought up with that sort of really almost fascist thing that if you become famous, that's it, you lost, And I thought it was very interesting until I was 27 and I thought, wait a minute, that's a bit too easy just to paint yourself in a corner and just be there forever. And I guess I reached out when I moved to London when I was 27 and actually wanted to communicate. And I sort of always had at the back of my head that I was communicating with people's grandmothers and just like this sort of average normal person that doesn't, like I mentioned that before too, the David Attenborough style where you go into people's living rooms and tell them about creatures they've never seen ever, and which I guess is partly what you guys are doing here on BBC. You sort of have to deal with peculiar, I don't know what word to use, but just to get your message through, and I guess I feel in a similar way, and one of the ways to do that is singles. I have to say another way to look at that picture, though, is to say that I am very excited about visual things. I collaborate with a lot of music people, but I am also very excited about visual things. So I think all my singles have been driven by me meeting up with somebody who does videos or short films, and then we sit down and improvise and we come up with a script.
So it's a creative opportunity, essentially.
Yeah. And a room for a lot of B-sides.
Now, something I want to ask
so
you
it
about.
isn't all bad.
Before, you sort of said that your London phase had come to an end and you're now based in New York, and you sort of implied that you were going to start a new musical direction. Can you give us some clues as to what your new musical direction might be?
I really want to, but I have burned myself on it in the past, that if I say things, once I'm in the studio, it
Turns out differently.
Yeah, it sort of jinxes me. Like I've got a recipe and then I don't want to do it, So maybe I should talk about it later.
All right, we'll invite you back in 10 years' time.
Sadly, now we are running out of time, and we
Yeah,
need
well-
to remind the listeners that they can get our playlist by emailing us at mixing.it@bbc.co.uk. You can write to us at Broadcasting House, London W1A 1AA. You can look us up on page 652 of CFAX, or you can go to the website at www.bbc.co.uk/Radio 3. Our deep thanks to tonight's fascinating guest, Björk. Thank you very much for coming in. It's been great hearing your music, both the music you chose and the music that you've been making so successfully for the last 10 years.
Thanks very much for inviting me. Gives me a lot of faith to meet people that are this passionate about music.
Well, we're going to play out with the ensemble remix of Sun in My Mouth from Björk's latest album, Vespertine.
Until next week, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right is close.